dressed up for church?
That's a pretty good question. Now, if you think about some of the why questions that we've asked so far in this series, sometimes the answer boils down to because the Bible said so. There might be a thou shalt, there might be a thou shalt not, or there's a Jesus' example for us to do something. This question is one that doesn't really fall into, now here's a verse that tells us why we should do this. Really, we have to stop and think, well, where did this tradition come from? I think it's based on some good biblical concepts, but with many traditions, they often start veering away from the original intent, and before long, it starts becoming more important than what the principle really was and how we carry it out. So when you think about dressing up, why do people dress up for church? If we go back 250 years, before then, people didn't have the means to have multiple different changes of clothes, some nice and some less nice. They just couldn't do that. So they just had to show up to worship in whatever they could wear. But as people began having the opportunity to have produced clothes and better clothes, they started putting aside their better clothes for Sundays. Now, their intent may have begun as, we want to give our best to God, or maybe they thought, well, if I were going to visit a king or a president, I would not wear what I wear to the fields. I wouldn't wear what I wear to school. I would wear something nicer. Hey, Sunday, it's a special occasion. It's a day that we celebrate something. We celebrate Jesus. So lots of good reasons people started wearing nicer clothes to church. But before long, it became more about trying to show off and to show that, hey, look, I can afford nicer clothes. I can be this. And even if you look at some of Paul's letters, he dealt with that some in the early church where people were dressing up and putting on fancy clothes and trying to get better positions in the different seatings. And Scripture deals with a lot of those things. Even if you look at Jesus, the Pharisees that he dealt with, what did he call them? He said, you're like whitewashed tombs. You put on all the best on the outside and you try to behave all proper, but on the inside, you're dead inside. There's not much there. When it comes to what we wear to church, ultimately, it doesn't matter. Listen to this. This is from 1 Samuel chapter 16, where Samuel is visiting with the family of David before he's calling David as the next king. But this is where Samuel sees him, and God tells him, man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. It's not about what's on the outside. But at the same time, I'm not saying wear whatever you want to church. Stop and think about it. When we gather together as a church family, it is a day to celebrate. It is a special day. It's a time where our hearts need to be shifted from the day-to-day mundane to a special moment where we're corporately coming together to worship. Does that mean we have to wear special clothes or nice clothes or the best, our Sunday best? Not necessarily. I want you to think about it this way. It's a day that's set apart. It's different. Some of your parents might have to wear very fancy clothes to the office every day. Maybe a coat and tie is what Dad has to wear to the office. Now, if he wore the exact same thing to church, that day wouldn't feel very set apart, would it? I think it needs to be something different. So maybe not what you wear to school every day, but something that's a little bit different that helps you begin getting your heart ready, saying, today is different. Today is special. I want to be in front of God. But don't ever let it become a competition. Don't let it ever be, well, look, I'm dressed nice and they're not. That's not the point. The point is we're coming together to worship one holy, amazing God. And we want our hearts prepared for that moment. It's not about what we dress. It's about what we have going on inside. Now, I have a question for you. How many years do you think our pastoral staff have been wearing special bow ties on Resurrection Sunday morning?
12.
29 years ago.
25 years.
20. 20 years.
100.
Those are some good guesses, but the answer is 5. For the past 5 years, our pastoral staff have worn bow ties as a way to set apart that day as we all together wear those and remember Jesus' resurrection.